chair for the 2025-26 municipal year. Could I have nominations, please?
Yeah, I move Councillor Mike Lewis.
Could I have a seconder, please?
I'm happy to second that.
Okay. Any other nominations? Okay, all in favour? Yep. Okay, thank you. Councillor Mike Lewis is elected chair.
All in all, and thank you for your confidence in me and electing me as chair for the next year. Well, back to the agenda. This next item on the agenda is apologies for absence. Sorry, I missed that one. I do apologise. Yes, it's the election of vice chair, and I'd like to propose Phil Downing as vice chair the next year.
I'm happy to second that, Chair.
Thank you. That's very kind of Phil. Any other nominations? No. All in favour of Phil Downing becoming vice chair for the next municipal year. Thank you very much. That's fine. Congratulations, Phil. Okay, moving on then. Apologies for absence now then, Jeremy.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies from Councillors Mike Locke and Will Thomas.
Thank you. And now disclosure of personal and prejudicial interest. I must say I'm a member of the Swansea LGPS and I am receiving a pension. So,
as usual, Chairman Brothers, member of the pension fund.
Anybody online?
Yes. Hello, Chair. Yeah, my wife and I are both members of the pension fund. Thank you.
And Patience?
Yeah, member of the pension fund, Chair.
Thank you. Any officers that would make a declaration that they are members?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Member of the local pension fund. Thank you.
Thank you. Caroline?
Thank you, Chair. I'm a member of the LGPS.
Likewise, Chairman, I'm a member of the LGPS.
A member of the LGPS.
Thank you all. That's fine. Okay, Jeremy, got all that? Okay. Oh,
Sorry,
and Laura. I forgot Laura.
I'm a member of the LGPS as well.
Thank you. It's very kind. Okay. Moving on then to approve the minutes of the last meeting. That's on pages 1 to 4. Page 1, page 2, page 3, and page 4. Are we all happy that those minutes are a true reflection of the last meeting? Yes? Yeah. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item 6, which is the report from Audit Wales. And I believe this is going to be taken by Derwin Owen and Marie Herman, is it? Oh, she's doing the live feed. Sorry. It's Derwin then. So it's the audit plan for 2025. So over to you then, Derwin, please.
Thank you, Chair. Barda, good morning, everybody. So hopefully I think I've got a relatively straightforward task this morning of just presenting to the committee the Audit Wales audit plan in relation to the statement of accounts for 24-25. I think the committee was very familiar with the audit plan concept, but it sets out how we will undertake the audit during the next few weeks and months, and of course recognising that it's always a risk-based audit. We will follow where we believe that the areas of main risk are. A reminder then that what we're trying to do is to reach an opinion on whether the accounts do show a true and fair view of your transactions during the year. And in line with the industry standard, we will use this concept of materiality. We cannot say that your accounts are accurate, otherwise we will probably never finish the audit. And the concept of materiality is used as standard in external audit. And using 1% of your balances, it comes out this year at a little bit over £33 million. So hopefully the committee are familiar with that concept. In terms of risks, nothing particular, Chair, I need to draw the committee's attention to this morning. There is, as always, the risk, I emphasise the risk of management override. That is present in all entities, so any external audit plan you may see in the public or private sector will include that risk. And the second one we've included as an area of focus is, you'll understand, you've got a large, complex investment portfolio. Some of those things are easier to value than others. And again, we'll need to look at some of those in terms of how we get the valuations, but it's a pretty well rehearsed process by now, so I don't anticipate any significant issues. Final comment, Chair, would be yes, as things stand, we are scheduled to sign off by the deadline, though clearly that is subject to what we find in the next few weeks, but all things being equal, it'll be signed off by the deadline. And finally, yes, there is a fee included for the audit work. That fee has been increased in line with the inflationary increase of 1.7%, so now stands at a little bit underneath £55,000 to conduct the audit. I think, Chair, that is all I wish to say this morning, but happy to take any reflections or questions which the committee has.
Thank you, Derwin. That was an excellent presentation. Is there any questions for Derwin?
No, I haven't got a question, Chair. It's just how excited somebody gets when you don't read it properly. And when I looked at the fees and said 1.7%, I thought, jeepers, 1% of our fund. And then it was not an increase on the last one. So then I just came back down to earth then.
Thank you.
I'm very happy to take that as a fee, if that's what the committee wish to recommend.
Oh, excellent. Thank you very much. So if there's no... Jeff has a question.
Thanks, Chairman. Just a couple of comments, really, and just to let committee know about the landscape and the state of public audit of pension schemes in England and Wales. I just want to commend Audit Wales and Darwin and his colleagues for managing to hit the deadlines as required by the statutory deadlines. In our recent memory, we've always managed to meet those deadlines as far as the pension fund's financial statements are concerned, and that's as a result of the great working relationships that we have with our external auditors and the experience of their staff in conducting, as Darwin indicated in his presentation, quite complex and difficult asset classes and valuations to get their heads around. Just to give you a context of how well and what an achievement that is, in England, the pension funds' financial statements are still inextricably linked with the financial statements of their administering authority, and they are finding it challenging to sign off within those deadlines because of the audit challenges that they're facing in England. I know a number of funds in England still have their accounts outstanding as far as their pension fund is concerned for a number of years. They're still open, still not signed off. So the fact that Audit Wales have managed to achieve the deadline in these last few years is no small feat, and also is a commendment to Welsh Government for implementing that disaggregation of pension fund financial statements from the financial statements of the administering authorities to facilitate that clean process. So just for your information there, Chairman.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you for those kind words about Audit Wales. Moving on then, thank you, Darren, for your presentation. And we'll move on now to item 7 on the agenda, which is the breaches report. This is for information, and I believe Jeff is going to take this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Those eagle-eyed amongst you may notice that although the title of the report is the same, and you know you're used to receiving this on a regular basis at committee, the layout has changed. We've introduced a new corporate layout, which hopefully will aid your reading of the report and aid your understanding of what we're trying to communicate to committee and any recommendations that we may have and may be making to committee. This report is a for information report, as it routinely is. As you know, we're required by the pension regulator to report operational breaches to those charged with government on a regular period, which we do as good practice. And it's a well-worn report now, Chairman, in terms of the type and nature of breaches, in terms of late contributions in the main that we receive from employers. However, routinely, where we report these breaches, they tend to be from very small employers, whereby obviously the admin support is perhaps not as developed and sophisticated as our larger employers, and you know, understandably, you know, they may be late sometimes. However, if I could ask you to turn to page page 51, and we can see where one of our largest employers submitted their employer contributions and their employee contributions, as a matter of fact, late for the month of April, by the amount of 1 day. They were 1 day late. Well, no, 3 days late, sorry. The due date on the 19th, they paid on the 22nd. We have undertaken some investigations with that employer. I've spoken to a senior member of their senior management team, the director of finance, who has apologised profusely. They've indicated they reviewed their processes and procedures and put in extra mitigating controls to ensure that does not happen again. Apparently, it happened because of the quite quick 2 bank holidays that occurred during April, and one was overlooked in terms of processing times, etc. So hence the delay in receiving contributions. I'm satisfied it's a one-off. It's not systemic. You know, it's not indicative of anything that we should be concerned about going forward. But it's obviously it's an embarrassment for that large employer. Nothing further to add, really, Chairman, for the report.
Thank you for that, Jeff, and glad to see that you've addressed that oversight.
That was my only question, Chair, because the figure does jump out at you this time. But Jeff anticipated. And then Jeff.
Thank you, Phil. Any other questions? No. Moving on then to agenda item 8, which I think Jeff is going to take. It's to do with admitted bodies and school cleaning services. So could you elaborate a little, Jeff?
Thank you, Chairman. The committee has previously received similar reports in respect of admitted bodies in respect of school cleaning services. However, they've been in respect of named cleaning services, specific cleaning services. So, for example, if I ask a committee to recall receiving a report about admitting Mrs. Bucket, for example, as an admitted body employer within the scheme, I think it was sometime last year. Since that time, a number of other schools have determined to outsource their cleaning services. So this is almost becoming a trend. And noting we have, you know, up to 100 schools in the Swansea area, if they all decide to outsource their cleaning services, this committee could be receiving 90 reports to approve admitted body status for those cleaning companies. What this report seeks to do is to ask committee to approve delegated approvals to myself to undertake the required due diligence and admission agreements required to admit an employer on an individual employer basis, and for you to approve on an open basis to approve, the admission in principle for these types of employers going forward. Just to reduce the governance burden on this committee, because as I say, it does seem to be a trend, because I think we have at the moment 4 such cases going through the system, and without this delegation and blanket approval, you'll expect another 4 reports coming before you. So just to preempt that and to manage the governance time of this committee appropriately, I've determined to try and get this blanket approval for those types of employers that you know we can expect in the next few months.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions for Jeff? Phil?
Yeah. This report obviously cuts a lot of work out, because I'm a governor of a school, and we've just done this because we're looking at the pennies like all other schools are. The recommendation does say cleaning contracts only for staff who have 2P'd across. So what about the ones they've taken on? They don't have the chance of. They don't.
This is purely to safeguard, Councillor Downing, the continuous LGPS membership of existing City and County of Swansea staff who are cleaning the schools presently. This new contracting company wins the contract and agree to take on those existing employees, and so to safeguard their membership of the LGPS, we admit them as an employer, but only in respect of those staff who transfer across. In respect of any new employees they engage, it will be up to the employer to provide the pension provision as required by law, but it won't be the LGPS.
I was just looking at ways of getting more money in.
Thank you. Any more questions for Jeff on this subject? No. Well, the recommendation is to approve, and that's on page 51. So
52.
52. Could we have a vote on that then, please, Chairman?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Do we also read the recommendations?
Yes, please.
Okay. It's recommended that the committee approve close-ended admitted body status for all employees undertaking school cleaning contracts only for staff who have 2P'd across, subject to satisfactory due diligence and completion of admission agreement, and 2, delegate the Deputy Section 151 officer to undertake the due diligence and complete the admission agreement and ultimately approve the admission on an individual employer basis, subject to the same. Could I have votes in favour, please? Okay, that's unanimous. That's carried. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that. Moving on to agenda item 9. This is the overpayment and underpayment of pension policy, and this is you, Jeff, again.
Thank you, Chairman. This report seeks the approval for a revision to the overpayment and underpayment pension policy, and that's attached to Appendix 1. Just what is it pertaining to? As a matter of course, we have thousands of pensions in payment. Obviously, circumstances change. Members very sadly sometimes decease. Sometimes the communication isn't as it should be, and those pensions continue in payment erroneously. In accordance with the regs, we're required to cease payment immediately and try and recover those illegal, basically, payments. as and when we can. Obviously, every circumstance is different, and the whys and wherefores why these overpayments arise. And sometimes the recovery of the same is delicate, and individual circumstances need to be considered. And this is largely what this policy seeks to do, is largely set out actions that we would take in certain circumstances. However, there is a catch-all that obviously each case is different and will be considered on its merits. Similarly, in terms of underpayment of pensions, you know, and the recompense and rectification actions that we would take in respect of underpayment. So it's required that we have a policy and that we do update it from time to time, and this is that revision to that policy. Nothing really further to add. It's an operational policy. It's as I say, it's not it's not a science. It's very much an art because every case is different, and personal circumstances do very much have a part to play in the final determination of what action to take. Nothing really further to add. As I say, that the policy in full is at Appendix 1. And there are examples given there of when we'll write off recovery action, etc., and how we try and prevent these, you know, these errors occurring, like by working with the National Fraud Initiative. We have a mortality screening service whereby we screen all the data that we hold against death records, etc., to ensure that they're up to date. There's the Tell Us Once service that we use both for our other large employer, Neath Talbot Council, and ourselves, whereby, you know, we both have registrars services. So there is a flow of information then in respect of deaths of potential members, etc. So there are preventable prevention measures in place. However, some do slip through the net.
Thank you, Jeff. I've got one question.
Yeah.
When it comes to underpayment, if there's been a glitch in the system and somebody's been underpaid for several months or even years, do we give an interest payment on top of that then when it comes to light?
There is provision in the regs to make recompense. I can't off the top of my head. It's probably in relation to prevailing bank rate at the time there, Chairman. But yeah, recompense is recognised.
Thank you. Any more questions? Thank you. Well, the recommendation is on page 55. And would you like to read out the recommendation again?
Thank you, Chair. It's recommended that the committee approves the overpayment and underpayment of pension policy attached at Appendix 1. Could I have those in favour, please? Okay, thank you, Chair. That's unanimous. That's carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you for that. Moving on to item 10, which is the Wales Pension Partnership Local Government Pension Scheme, Fit for the Future business case. I know we've been involved in this for several months, but over to you, Jeff, to bring us up to speed.
Thank you, Chairman. If committee is there with me, I do have a presentation prepared on this. Sorry. Thank you, Chairman. Thanks for bearing with me. On page 69 of your pack, you'll see the recommendations that the report is seeking to get from committee today. As the Chairman indicated, this report seeks those approvals to move the WPP Fit for the Future business case to the next stage. So the recommendations there are clear, and the Chairman and the committee clerk will read them out in due course and ask for your approval. But just to bring committee up to speed on the work since I last reported to you back in March when the business case was approved by committee. Just to remind the committee that the business case largely centred around WPP's ambition to build its own investment management company solely for the constituent authorities in Wales, and to deliver the additional service requirements as outlined by government, and hit those target deadlines of April 2026 within that entity. Committee approved that business case, as did the other administering authorities, and subsequently, as I've indicated to you via email, I think after the date, Westminster Government approved that business case on April the 9th. Just to indicate, that there was serious jeopardy in that whole business case process, the Fit for the Future business case process. Two other pools, namely the Access pool and the Brunel pool, were unsuccessful in their business case submissions, and they will cease to be. And the underlying funds in those two pools, I think approximately 20 pension funds, will now have to find themselves a new pool to be a part of. So there was real jeopardy in that business case submission process, and we're very pleased. We're very thankful of the success of the WPP application, and the fact that we've been given the green light to go ahead and build an investment management company for the 8 Welsh funds. So as I say, this report is coming to committee for those approvals identified on page 69, but this report will also find its way to full council on July the 3rd. It's been determined because of the importance and significance of the recommendations here and what we're trying to achieve, that it's appropriate that council get an opportunity to comment and debate the subject matter. So mindful of that, I know everyone at committee is a subject matter expert on the LGPS and doesn't need any background briefing on it, but the presentation that you've got before you is mindful of the audience that I'll be addressing on July the 3rd, who perhaps don't have that experience of this committee and previous knowledge of the LGPS. So if I just kick in, I'll largely skip over these introductory slides, but just some intro for those elected members at council about the LGPS. It's the largest funded public scheme in the UK, just under 7 million members throughout England and Wales, over 15,000 employers, and just under £400 million worth of assets. And those are administered by 86 administering authorities, of which Swansea Council is one. In Wales, slightly smaller, obviously. When you got just under 500,000 members in Wales, 312 employers, including all the 22 local authorities, and together we've got about £25 billion worth of assets. And there you can see the 8 administering authorities within Wales, including ourselves there, Swansea. as I said previously, this council, as the administering authority for the pension fund, delegates and under its constitution all pension fund decision making to this committee, and this committee comprises of the members that you can see on that slide there. Obviously, I'll have to update that now, following the new municipal year. As I understand, Councillor Curtis has come off this committee, and we've got a new elected member taking her place in the form of Councillor Sam Pritchard. But obviously, this magnificent committee you see before you have delivered all the success of the fund in the previous few years. Some stats about us as a fund. We've just got over 50,000 members, comprised of actives, pensioners, deferred, as you can see there. And as I said previously, we provide retirement benefits for some of the lowest paid workers in the public sector. Average pension and payment in Swansea is approximately £5,000. There's a list of some of our employers, two largest at the top there, Swansea Council and Neath Port Talbot Council. But as I say, going all the way down to some of our smallest employers, like the aforementioned Mrs. Bucket Cleaning Services right at the bottom there, is one of our newest employers in the scheme. Very proud of the stats on this page. As indicated by Derwin in Audit Wales, the financial statements for 2024-25 are being closed off, finalised by Karen. Karen does look a bit weary because she's been busy burning the midnight oil, closing the accounts for 24-25. So hopefully that will be successfully audited, and we can report on that to committee at our next meeting in September, and receive the audit opinion in November on that. But as of last reportable date, 23-24, we can report fund value of 3.3 billion, increase in year of just shy of £500 million, with a fund return in the year of just under 13%. Again, you can see that's well above the fund average at just over 9%. We're well outperforming the average funds. But in the 3 years ending to 31st of March 2024, we were actually the number one ranked fund in those 3 years, returning just over 14% compared to the average of 11%. So that outperformance over and above the average fund equates to approximately £300 million during that period. And just to give you some idea of the scale of the growth of the investment assets over a period of time, I've just picked out some random dates there, really, during the last 15 years or so. Like as recently as 2010, the fund was barely valued at just over £1 billion. As at 31st of March 2025, when Karen closes down the accounts, we should be reporting a net asset value of 3.6 billion. I mean, the difference from 2021 to 2025, in the space of 4 years, the fund has increased in value by £1 billion. So those figures are sort of quite mind-boggling in a way, when you compare it to say, for example, Swansea Council itself has a balance sheet of just under £2 billion on its own, and that's including all the assets that Swansea Council owns. So you realise the size and magnitude of the entity, which is the pension fund. As again, we 2025 is an important year. It's a valuation year. We're required to value the fund every 3 years, and you can see there the progression of the funding level during that period. As I say, our actuaries are going to be presenting later on our pensions dashboard update, but they're busy undertaking the 2025 valuation, going through the data, etc., with a view to reporting to this committee sometime in autumn some of those interim results with a view to signing off the valuation in March 26. Early indications are that it'll be a very positive valuation, and we can expect a funding position much improved from that in 2022. I don't want to say too much at this stage, Chairman, but I'd just say the tea leaves augur a good outcome for this fund. Obviously, that's the financial success of the fund. And when I talk about the funding level being at 71% in 2010, obviously mine and the committee at that time's primary objective was to fill that funding gap, to bridge that funding gap, to achieve full funding status. So the investment objectives at that time was all about maximizing investment returns, maximizing the total return of the fund, and closing that gap as quickly as possible. However, as we have attained that full funding level, it's allowed the fund to incorporate wider, more qualitative objectives. And as this slide indicates, this committee supported a net zero target by 2037 by making the investment portfolio more sustainable and trying to make it more supportive of the transition economy and affect that change that is required if we are to seriously tackle climate change risk. And the committee approved a strategy to do that alongside our consultant Simons a number of years ago. As I say, we were one of the first to adopt a net zero strategy amongst the LGPS. Again, latterly, this full funding status has allowed this committee to consider other objectives, and an objective that this fund has approved in the last few years is trying to increase local investment and have an impact locally. Obviously, most of our stakeholders live, work, retire in the Swansea and Port Talbot region, and it's not unreasonable to expect some of that investment to benefit those stakeholders and those regions as well. So I know I took some of the committee and local pension board to visit this asset that we've invested in, this biomass plant, which is not only accretive to our net zero ambitions, but it also employs 35 people locally on site, and up to 50 people in the supply chain who supply the waste wood that the facility needs. It also supports a 350k community benefit fund, which invests and gives donations to local clubs and charities in the locale. Most recently, I think this has been reported in the National Popular Press. The committee signed off just before Christmas the launch of this Swansea partnership, and this is a very exciting endeavour, an investment that the committee have approved, whereby we've approved a £50 million partnership with Newco Capital with a view to deploying that money into affordable, social and key worker housing within the geographical region. 42% into social infrastructure. And what do I mean by social infrastructure? Daycare nurseries, doctor surgeries, social care homes, and then another 10% into shared living accommodation, which is required by social care providers. Very exciting. The legals for that have only just been completed in the last couple of weeks, and so hopefully they'll start investing that money very, very shortly. As I say, it's a very well developed pipeline. You can see there in the very small print above there, and you can see some sites where that housing has been identified. And as you can see, it's very much pepper potted throughout the geographical region of the pension fund. So you know, that's an investment that this committee has undertaken solely. And obviously, as a result of the Fit for Future consultation, that will not be able to happen going forwards, because all our investments now will have to be routed via the WPP investment management company going forward. So this is probably one of the last. Well, it will be the last investment that the Swansea City and County of Swansea Pension Fund Investment Committee makes in its own right going forward. Everything will be routed now via WPP as required by government consultation. Again, some of the plaudits the fund has received and awards. Now takes us on to investment pooling. Obviously, this committee is well versed in the origins of pooling, and it dates back to 2017. Obviously, Wales was a standalone pool as identified in that graphic, and there were in total 8 other pools. As I say, as a result of this recent Fit for the Future consultation, those 2 pools, Brunel and Access, that you can see on that graphic, are no more. You know, when this graphic is produced post 2025, they will no longer be there, and those underlying funds within Brunel and Access will be subsumed by other pools. What was the original objective of pooling 1.0? It was to drive out economies of scale, you know, improve efficiencies, but also there was, you know, in the small print, a desire to increase investment in UK infrastructure, and that has not only increased, but obviously has manifested itself in explicitly being a requirement in this latest consultation. Obviously, WPP consists of those funds that you can see there, and pooling arrangement established by WPP has been a great success. I mean, we work collaboratively. The existing relationships actually predate pooling, and our relationship with the host authority, Carmarthenshire County Council, is very good. Our relationships with all the other constituent authorities is very good, and it's always been on a collaborative consensus basis that we've delivered pool and WPP objectives. And as indicated by the slide, currently, you know, over 75% of assets have been pooled within WPP, but the consultation and the Fit for the Future requirements require that 100% of those assets will be in WPP by April 2026. Some other successes to date, you can see there. I'm not intending to go through them line by line, but similarly, you know, on a local impact basis, collectively, we've delivered some investments, made some investments for the betterment of Wales collectively. So these aren't just the Swansea; these are collectively as 8 administering authorities, and this is quite a large 230 megawatt energy capacity battery storage facility, which is under construction just north of Newport, south of Newport in Uskmouth, on the site of an old gas-fired power station. It says coal-fired there. I think it's gas-fired, isn't it? I think, isn't it, Mike? Was it coal or gas, Mike? I can't remember now.
It is a gas-fired.
It was gas
station there,
yeah.
but it was a coal-fired.
It was coal-fired, was it? Yeah. Chairman visited that site, and as you can see in the picture there, the actual pensions minister came down to visit that site last month sometime. Again, you know, there's a huge number of construction jobs while it's in construction phase. A lot of the construction materials are locally sourced. and they've actually repurposed the old rail line to bring in the aggregate and building materials to reduce the burden on public roads. Next one again, via WPP this and via Russell and Pluto Finance. It's via the private debt fund. We're providing private debt finance to small medium house builders within Wales to deliver their development projects, and there's a number of them throughout Wales. This one is identified as being starting on site, and there are a lot more to come. Again, pepper potted through North and South Wales. This one's in Ceredigion, and they're going to be a mix of to rent, to buy, affordable, and family homes. And this third one, again, it's accretive to our net zero ambitions. Again, the chairman's visited this investment as part of the due diligence process. It's a forestry investment throughout the UK, but this particular asset is based in Brecon. It's a 7,000 hectare fund, but it's 633 hectares in the Brecon Beacons, and it's building and husbanding and harvesting timber for the construction industry. And it's I know this metaphor is a bit clumsy, but it's like a cradle to grave operation, in that, you know, you see them planting the saplings. You know, there's full forestry husbandry, you know, going on, and then you see them harvesting mature trees in a different part of the site, and then they're shipped off up the road, just up the road to a sawmill where they're processed into construction grade timber. A little known metric. I was totally unaware, and it very much segues into, you know, the previous slide about house building and building, you know, the required new homes that we require. Over 80% of construction grade timber in the UK is imported. So the fact that we're supporting and investing in UK construction grade timber is only beneficial to that supply chain. So that takes us on to the future consultation, and why largely this report is before you and is going to council on the 3rd of July. As I say, this committee is well versed with the requirements and you know, why we are where we are in respect of the Fit for the Future consultation, and the government has now responded to the consultation, and it was largely as read, save for a few concessions in respect of governance requirements and a few other minor concessions. However, largely the consultation is as originally shared back in November. Here, a slide outlines our proposal. You know, what it will look like in real terms, what we're trying to build. And as I said in the original business case, Chairman, this is an evolution of current arrangements, not ripping up and starting again. It's putting around the existing structures and relationships that we have, the FCA compliant hardware and plumbing and regulatory framework that is required to be an FCA regulated investment management company. Again, here we're revisiting some of the day one requirements. We need to be FCA regulated. We need to have the capability and capacity to undertake due diligence on local investments and manage those investments. and be able to offer in-house management services. And then this important one at the bottom, 100% of fund assets to be under pool management by March 2026. As I say, those are challenging timescales. As I say, the fundamental question was we either build our own WPP FCA regulated IMCO, or we to attain that FCA regulation, we merge with another pool, and we've undertaken to build our own. And I won't revisit the rationale for why we're going to do that, why we wanted to do that, but when I presented the original business case, I hope I made that clear, not only to committee but to JGC when they approved it on March the 12th as well. But I will be making that business case when I present it to council, because obviously council won't have heard the business case firsthand. As I say, letter received from the Minister on the 9th of April approving our business case. Two funds in Axis and Brunel have not been so lucky, and the chairman and myself were at the PLSA last week, and we caught up some colleagues from both those pools, and they're having a rum old time trying to find a new home for themselves, and our thoughts are with them. Again, this is a revision of what we're trying to achieve in terms of the target operating model. As I said, lots of the strategic partners names you can see across the bottom there are very familiar: Russell, BlackRock, Schroders, GCM, etc. As I say, it's an evolution of what we currently have. We're not proposing to rip it up and start again. It's merely building the FCA structure around these relationships and services, etc. Lots of concerns, quite rightly, the committee have about your role and what oversight function that you may have over the operation of the IMCO. And this is a pictogram of how, us as shareholders, because I want to confirm again that we'll be a 1/8 shareholder in the investment management company. Swansea Council will be a 1/8 shareholder in that new company, and as such, we'll have rights on the shareholder board there that you can see on the right hand side, and how that will interface with the regulated investment management company. Obviously, there are rules about majority representation on that IMCO board, but there is recognition that there should be and will be shareholder representation on that IMCO directors board. Again, target operating model. There was a lot of concern in the consultation about an erosion of decision making at investment committee level. Lots of the pools will be undertaking operational decisions that historically investment committees made. This diagram that was included in the consultation largely survived the consultation process. So this is what they're intending to implement. There may be some movement when the guidance comes out about definitions of some of these items, but largely their expectation is that investment committees decide on high-level investment strategy and asset allocation, whereas the pool decides and determines how that strategic asset allocation is delivered. As I say, we've worked incredibly well together as 8 constituent authorities to deliver this business case. There's been a sophisticated project management group set up and communication channels set up to ensure that we liaise with all stakeholders and engage with both yourselves as committees, but at joint governance committee level and pension board level. There are regular engagements with the pension board chairs, of which Councillor Ryan Doyle has been invited and been part of. And I know I've offered a presentation to go across to Neath Talbot Council and present to their executive management team next month and their cabinet to bring them up to date onto the Fit for the Future consultation process. So largely, Chairman, why you've got this report before you and why this report is going to council is to approve, the formation of that corporate entity, the WMI & Co, and to allow and delegate officers and JGC to move forward and then to take the actions on your behalf to be able to move forward with the required actions to hit that deadline by April 2026, but and also to approve the revised business plan as a result of the additional costs incurred by the project. Happy to leave it there, Chairman, and the recommendations as outlined on page 69.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for the presentation. Yes, the recommendation is on page 69. Jeremy, I know it's a bit long-winded, but if you would, I feel it's important for you to read out the... Oh, sorry, I didn't realise. Sorry, I didn't see you indicating that.
Yeah, but it's not so much questions. I think I've mentioned it before, that I'd like to congratulate not only the chair and Jeff, the amount of work that's gone into this over the last few years, but also mention Karen as well, who's always here, takes all the blame when she's not. But for her and the team, who have worked tremendously hard, because I remember when WPP was first mooted, that we were too small. We had to amalgamate with the English, but then we put up a strong case, and we had the WPP. Moving on, then again, they tried to get rid of us the second time by saying we were too small, and we fought our case. My first question is, maybe it's, what does Jeff think about it? Because obviously it's never been said, but you've mentioned twice, maybe 3 times, about Brunel and Access. Would it be possible that they would want to join ours, or are we saying, hang on, the door shut unless you can speak Welsh? That's the first one. The second one is, like I said, I've been here when we were 67% funded, and the effect it had on the council and the council tax. And we don't, well, you don't blow your trumpet loud enough. Now we're over 100% funded. It doesn't cost the council a penny, which reflects in how the rates are set. And I think we don't say too much about that. It just gets mentioned in council by the leader once or twice, and that's it. Nobody knows. But with this presentation now, they're either going to listen to you, Jeff, or they're going to fall asleep. Yeah, once we're over, when you said when we're over 100% funded, to me that was great, because I've been here when we had a lot of black holes. And I can only congratulate you on the work, because it's a lot. People don't understand the work that goes on, because Welsh pension pool is all of Wales, and you've got to meet somewhere, and and you get on with it. So I can't congratulate you enough for the amount of work that you do. Okay, thanks. If I think of anything else, I come back.
Thank you very much for those kind words, Phil. You have another question? Yes, by all means.
I got down here every penny, because you said we are moving everything across to the Welsh pension pool. What happens to our team?
Thank you, Chairman. Number of points to address for Councillor Downing. First of all, thank you for very kind words. Yeah, it has been a very long time coming, and obviously Councillor Downing has been a long time member of this committee, probably the longest serving member of this committee now, and as you say, has seen that evolution from underfunding and the dark days of when government were talking about abolishing the scheme, making it a pay-as-you-go unfunded scheme. So the fact that you're here to see it fully funded and in rude health is a testament to your longevity as a committee member as well, Councillor Downing. In terms of access in Brunel, yes, you're quite right. It's a very sensible question to ask, Councillor Downing, because WPP have received approaches from the underlying funds of Access and Brunel for us to consider having them become a constituent authority to WPP. But the consensus among WPP constituent authorities was that the business case that we submitted to government was very much around the difference that WPP could make to Wales. You've seen some of the investments that WPP have made to try and improve, the national infrastructure and local infrastructure of the funds. To have an English fund in there would almost make a nonsense of that business case. So unfortunately, regrettably at this time as well, because obviously you're right to say it's a lot of work, Councillor Downing, and just building the IMCO is going to be a task in itself. But to accommodate the additional governance burden of trying to incorporate an English fund in there as well, we thought was something, discretion was the better part of valor, and say thank you, but no thank you at this point in time. In terms of every penny, you're quite right to ask that question, because lots of funds have asked that question, Councillor Downing, because obviously to pay pensioners we need working capital at each fund, and there is a recognition that there will be maybe 2% that will retain locally, to be able to pay our bills, for example, and to pay pensions in payment as required. So not everything will go across, and you're quite right to make that observation. In terms of the team, this council will still have responsibility for the £3.6 billion. Just because it's being invested by and managed by WPP IMCO doesn't absolve this committee or this council of his responsibilities for ensuring that money is appropriately managed. So in the same way that Karen and myself hold external managers to account now and appraise the reports, we'll be doing the same in respect of WPP IMCO now. So we'll be giving them a hard time, making sure that they're delivering what they're saying they're going to deliver. So there will be no diminution of any of the responsibilities or work or resource or admin required in Swansea. In fact, the second half of the Fit for the Future consultation, Councillor Downing, is about governance, and an element of that consultation is about identifying a senior officer and making the governance more robust at admin authority level. So if anything, you can see an increase in their team requirements locally rather than a diminution of that requirement. And I'd like to thank you again for your kind words, Councillor Downing. And I would suggest and invite you to make those points at council about the contribution that this committee makes to the council's budget. I mean, next year they will be toasting this committee's output when the report contribution reductions that we are likely to be recommending to the large employers next year.
Can I finish off, Chair?
By all means.
You mentioned the Margam biomass, and I got to be honest, it was nice to go and see somewhere where we've invested money, because over the years it's just been a fund manager. Most of it is around the world, but here's something we've invested on our doorstep. We all went along to have a look, and I got to be honest, I didn't even know it existed. But yet you've got this one, and then next door, where they burn the wood that goes into landfill, which saves landfill. Then the one next door was burning trees and things like that. So you can see the difference. Well, ours was net zero, and theirs was, I wouldn't like to hazard a guess what they would win. But it was good to see that everything that went to landfill wood-wise, we were burning that and changing into energy. It is very good to see that.
Yeah.
Forward to seeing houses.
That will be even more exciting, Councillor Downing, because yeah, I mean, in that slide that you can see the sites around the city and county of Swansea where they're going to be, and the numbers that we're talking about are going to be material. You know, you're talking about up to 700 new homes, so it's a material.
As long as you're not in Ponderlice.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Jeff. Just one observation, Jeff. I hope that, as Phil has just mentioned about the new houses being proposed, this will be carried forward to WPP, and hopefully they will take that on board and invest some of money in that sort of enterprise in the future.
That investment is locked in now, Chairman. You know, although there is an expectation that 100% of assets need to be within pool management by April 2026. The definition of what that means is quite loose. I don't think the government know what they mean by that requirement. So the expectation is that investment will be a Swansea specific investment, but just goes under pool management and is pooled on a notional basis in that respect.
Yeah, what I meant was I hope it is promoted within WPP to have further investments of a similar nature, so that it will benefit the local impact over the whole of Wales, basically.
Well, funnily enough, and I think Mike has been a party to the legal discussions about the structuring of the fund. At the moment, it only has two investors, ourselves and Hugo Llewellyn, the CEO of Newcore, who's investing his own capital alongside us. But it's been structured in a way that although it's the Swansea partnership with just us two as investors in it presently, because of the Swansea specific objectives of the fund, that's quite sensible, isn't it? But we've structured it in a way to allow new investors into the fund should they so wish. So yeah, it's very much is open for other people to invest. So that 50 million could potentially grow to 60, 70 million if other people want to come in and place their capital in the fund.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, Jeff, if I can just come in, it's structured in a way that allows other sleeves to be invested. So if when it's under WPP management, there's other Welsh funds who want some investment in their local area, they could do it via this vehicle.
Thank you, Mike. Did you want to come back, Phil? Oh, okay. Right, very good. Okay then, so if there's no more questions, we'll go on to the recommendation, which is on page 69. And as I said earlier, if you could read them out there, Jeremy, because I feel it's important to have the whole thing before we vote on it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. It's recommended that the committee notes the WPP fit for future business case previously approved by the committee. That's at Appendix 2, Appendix 3, Appendix 4, and Section 4. 2, approves the formation of a corporate entity wholly owned by the WPP administering authorities to be the WPP Investment Management Co, IMCO, and all other actions necessary to submit an application to the Financial Conduct Authority for the authorization of the IMCO, including but not limited to the selection and recruitment of senior management function roles as required by the FCA, and the preparation and submission of the application to the FCA. That's Section 5. 3, approves the revised WPP business plan and budget 25-26, which includes design and enabling costs for Project Snowden. That's Appendix 5 and Section 6. Recommendation 4 delegates the Deputy Section 151 officer in consultation with the Pension Fund Committee Chair, to progress Project Snowdon alongside WPP administering authorities in line with the government timetable within the approved budget. And recommendation 5 delegates the approval of the final formal documentation required for IMCO to be operational, described as go-live work as outlined in Section 7, to the Pension Fund Committee to give effect to the WPP Fit for Future business case. Can all those in favour please indicate? Okay, thank you, Chair. That's unanimous and carried. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Jeremy.
Sorry, Chairman.
Jeff, can you come in?
Just if I could add, and just for information, I mean, poor old Jeremy had to read those recommendations out. Just to assure you, the exact word-for-word report, save for the references to Swansea, etc., and the Deputy Section 151, etc., the exact same report is being taken to pension fund committees in all the other 7 administering authorities throughout June and July, and then the exact same report then will go to their respective councils as well. So the exact process is being followed in all of the 8 administering authorities, and just to reassure you.
Thank you for that, Chair. There's a reassurance. Fine. Well, moving on now to item 11 on the agenda. This is a presentation to give you an introduction to pension dashboards, and this presentation would be carried out by our actuaries, Laura and Eric, and I believe they're online. Laura?
Hello, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Hello. Yes. Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Good morning to everybody. Hopefully you'll recognise my face. I'm your fund actuary, and you will be seeing me very soon to deliver some information about the valuation, but there's no spoilers about that on this session. Sorry to disappoint. Jeff's very happy about that. I can see him smiling. So I'm actually, I'm not an expert on pensions dashboards, but I'm here to introduce my colleagues, Ben and Luke, who very much are experts. Eric's not here today. We felt like I could manage without him for this bit. So they are our team's experts on pensions dashboards. This is really interesting stuff, and it's very pertinent at the moment. So there should be plenty of time for you to, this is a training session for you also, there's plenty of time for you to ask questions throughout. Chair, I think we were allocated between 30 and 40 minutes for this. Is that still okay?
Yes, fine, carry on.
Perfect. Yeah. So yeah, please do ask questions throughout. It's really good for you all to get a good understanding of this and how it may impact the decisions that need to be made. I'm going to be sharing the slides, so Ben and Luke are going to tell me when to move on, but I don't need to say anything else. I'll get the slides ready, and then I'll hand over to the guys to do the delivery. Can everybody see? Bear with me a second.
Yes, fine.
Yeah, okay, I'll just put it on the big screen. Okay, right, over to you, Ben and Luke.
Cool, thanks, Laura. So if you wouldn't mind just moving along, yeah, perfect, to the agenda. So in terms of what Ben and I are going to cover today, so I'm going to start off by looking at the basics of pensions dashboards, so what they are, how they're going to work, some of the key dates. And we do have a short video to play in this section, which we were just testing out the sound, so hopefully that works, because that brings some of what we're talking about to life and how they're going to work in practice, so it's quite good at demonstrating that. Then I'm going to hand over to Ben, who's going to look at some of the considerations and concerns, so sort of the limitations of dashboards, things they won't be able to do, and then some of the challenges that might impact members, particularly for a scheme like the LGPS. And then Ben's going to finish off by looking at some of the key roles and the next steps and actions that funds should be thinking about in their preparations. And then, like Laura said, if you've got any questions, feel free to ask them throughout. And then we've tried to allow a bit of time at the end as well. Yes, hopefully that all sounds good. If you wouldn't mind moving to the next slide. Perfect. Oh, and then the next one, if that's all right, Laura. Perfect. So what are pensions dashboards? So probably the simplest way to describe pensions dashboards is they're essentially an online portal that allows members to view all of the pensions they have that aren't yet in payment in one secure place. So there's a few key objectives behind the decision to introduce dashboards. So firstly, it's to help individuals improve their retirement planning and financial well-being a bit more generally. And then secondly, to help individuals reconnect with any lost or forgotten pension pots they might have. So you can see on the slide there, there's an estimated 31 billion in lost pensions in the UK, which is quite a shocking stat, really. But the plan is to sort of help reconnect those members with some of those lost pensions. In terms of some of the key dates at the bottom of the slide, so 31st of October 2026 is the date that all schemes and providers are legally required to be connected by. But the Department of Work and Pensions has a phased connection timetable, with the larger schemes starting to connect from as early as April this year. And then all public service pension schemes, which obviously incorporates the LGPS, are required to be connected by the 31st of October 2025. So in roughly 4.5 months' time. So that's quite a significant milestone for the LGPS, the October date. There's obviously a lot of key steps that need to take place before that, which we'll discuss more as we go through. But that isn't the date the dashboards go live to the public. That is just when funds are required to be connected to the system by. So it's not going to be much later, probably late 2026 or early 2027, that dashboards are actually going to be available for the public to access. If you can move to the next slide, please, Laura.
Sure.
Thank you. So yeah, the first dashboard that's going to be available will be the Money Helper dashboard. So this is a government-sponsored dashboard which is being developed and run by the Money and Pension Service. So this one is very much the main priority at the moment. But the idea is that the insights that are gained from the Money Helper dashboard will help shape the approach and the controls and the protections that need to be in place before commercial dashboards are then allowed to launch. So in due course, we expect there to be a number of different dashboards, but there's currently a bit of uncertainty over when and how those commercial dashboards will be introduced, and whether the providers are going to be able to meet the high standards that the government are going to be expecting. So commercial dashboard providers are a little bit in limbo at the moment, and are slightly reluctant to invest a lot of time and money into developing them until they know what the landscape looks like, basically, and what the framework's going to be. And then just the last point on this slide, in terms of the interaction between pension schemes and dashboards. So each scheme is responsible for connecting to the central ecosystem, which will then link the scheme to all of the approved dashboards. So members will basically log on to access their information for a dashboard that they choose. And then the central system will retrieve their information from all the connected schemes. So the video will help show this a bit better. But basically, the ecosystem, that we call it, basically acts like a giant switchboard, and it just connects the pension schemes with the dashboards.
Hi, Ben. Can I interrupt you just for a second?
Yeah, sure. No.
Is the video integral to the presentation?
It is quite useful to bring all this to life, so to actually see what's going to be the logistics of it all happening.
So you got concerns that it may not be bilingual, or is it?
Okay.
Yeah.
The video isn't. No.
It isn't. Can we see it, Jeremy, or not? I'm going to take advice. No, it's not.
Well, Sean, we should be treated no less favourably.
Yeah. Would you mind if we could circulate the video separately to committee members and not actually transmit it at this point in time?
Yep, that should be fine.
Thanks, but apologies for that. Should have made clearer. I know you very helpfully have translated the slides bilingually, but I totally forgotten about the video. I'm sorry.
That's okay. There's nothing in the video that we don't discuss. It was more just to have a visual representation, so that's absolutely fine. So if we can move to the next slide, please, Laura. So yeah, this is just a summary of some of the benefits. So I've touched on a lot of these already. I guess one of them I haven't touched on is the bottom right, so more digital communications. So hopefully the dashboards will help support a shift towards faster, more efficient digital communication between schemes and members and help improve those behaviours. So, for example, dashboards might be the initial step towards engaging members with your own self-service portal, where they can obviously get more of that tailored member-specific information that they won't get on dashboards, which Ben will cover a bit later on. Next slide, please, Laura. Okay, so on the left here, you can see the phased connection dates that I was talking about. And these are just the ones for defined benefit schemes that we set out. And as I mentioned, the deadline for public service pension schemes is the 31st of October 2025. And I understand that the phase 2 testing with Hayward's is currently in progress or coming to an end. So that puts you in a really good place in terms of being well connected ahead of the 31st of October deadline. On the right-hand side, we've got the legal requirements on scheme managers. So TPR published a compliance and enforcement policy last September, and that's to basically ensure that schemes are meeting the legal duties under the dashboards framework. So the main ones in there being to actually be connected to the dashboards and be connected on time and responding to member dashboard requests with accurate and timely data. TPR also have the power to issue penalty notices to schemes and third parties. So that does include employers as well for any dashboard related breaches. And that can result in fines of up to 5,000 for an individual and up to 50,000 in other cases, although that would be more for a corporate trustee, the 50,000. So basically, in summary, dashboards is something TPR are taken very seriously. If you could move to the next slide, I think it's the next one's a video. So if you could skip to the next one after that, that would be great.
Yeah. Then we've got the link to the video there, I guess, at the bottom, which people can watch online. So yeah, perfect.
That's great. Thanks, Laura.
No worries.
Oh,
okay.
Oh, there you go.
Is that the next one? Yeah. Okay.
So this is the sort of thing the video was going to show, but basically how the system would work. So basically, the member would verify their identity through the government One Login service, and then provide their consent. Their data then is securely sent to every pension scheme, and they're looking for a match, basically, which I'll come on to in the next slide. If there is a match, so if the details the members put in match with the details on the administration record, then the fund, obviously via Hayward's as the ISP, then sends that relevant information back to the requesting dashboard. So that's basically a quick summary of how the system will work. If you can move on to the next slide, please, Laura.
Sure.
Perfect. So I mentioned matching there. So what do we mean by matches, and what should be used to match members to the pension records? So firstly, it's important to understand what personal data and contact information for the member will actually come through from the pensions finder service. And this is called find data. So when a find data request comes through, the service will essentially search through all the funds records to see if there's a pension for that individual. So the request that comes through will always include the member's first name, last name, date of birth, and email address. So those are all mandatory fields for them to complete. But it will also include other details they provided, like their national insurance number or mobile phone number. So based on this, funds basically need to decide and document what their matching criteria will be for either a full match, so that's where all the elements would match exactly, or a possible match, which I'll come on to in a sec. So, for example, you might decide that having the correct surname, date of birth, and national insurance number would be required for a full match, but just a national insurance number and a date of birth would only be a possible match. So if you had a possible match, for example, where the national insurance number and the date of birth matched, but the surname didn't, it might be that the members got married and they didn't notify the fund of their new name. So the national insurance number and date of birth would match, but the surname wouldn't in that scenario. If there is a match, this basically then allows the member to request their pension information or view data, as it's referred to. And then included in that view data will be an estimated retirement income figure, which will then be displayed immediately back to the dashboard. And obviously it's looking at multiple providers. So each time they log in, they should be able to see immediately an estimated retirement figure for each one of their pensions. If a possible match is returned, the member will receive a message basically to say they have 30 days to contact the fund to resolve that possible match. So in that example I mentioned a second ago, could be that the member contacts the fund, provides a copy of their marriage certificate, which then will turn that into a full match. So obviously possible matches will increase the number of queries to both the fund and employers, not to mention impact their overall member experience. So it's important that the matching criteria is sort of pragmatic enough to minimise the number of possible matches, whilst also protecting personal data by avoiding sort of false matches, which could then have the impact of leading to data breaches. And PASA do have guidance on data matching, so that's a good place to start when those decisions being made. So obviously the key to striking that balance, like everything, I guess, is to be using reliable data so that you can make confident matches. And I understand that regular data cleansing is taking place through the Hayward Insights module. So that's obviously a great way to improve that. So in due course, we would expect there to be policies on things like data matching, which Ben will cover a bit later on. But updating and verifying the data and understanding what it looks like before making those matching criteria decisions is definitely the right way round to do it. For example, in an ideal world, and perhaps potentially at some point in the future, email addresses would be really useful to include as matching criteria, because an email address doesn't typically change very often. But if a fund hasn't been collecting or verifying email addresses, then all it will do will just cause a load of possible match queries. And then finally, just on the call out box in the bottom of this slide, there are a few different ways that AVC view data can be connected to the dashboards. But unfortunately, there isn't one consistent approach across funds and AVC providers, which hasn't been ideal. So I won't go through all the nuts and bolts of all of that, but I understand that the fund has already coordinated with the various AVC providers to confirm the connection methods, and that conversations are ongoing about generally their readiness, which is basically where we'd be expecting funds to be at the moment. And also worth noting, PASA also has a checklist and toolkit to assist with that process as well with AVCs. So that's a useful document. And then next slide, if that's okay, please, Laura. Okay, cool. So once a match is found, there are then certain timescales that need to be met in terms of returning that member's pension information back to the dashboard. So as I mentioned before, where there's a full match, an estimated retirement income figure needs to be provided immediately. And this is where it's based on a figure that's already available. So what we mean by a figure that's already available is either a figure from an annual benefit statement that the members had in the last 13 months, or a separate calculation that's been performed for that member within the last 12 months. So where either of those is available, that figure needs to be provided immediately back to the dashboard. And this obviously be instantaneously done through the Haywards as the ISP. Where neither of those figures are available, the fund basically has 10 working days to return these results where it's in relation to the main LGPS benefits, and 3 working days where it's in relation to ABC benefits. So a situation where those figures might not already be available could be where members left the scheme, but for whatever reason their deferred benefits haven't been calculated yet. So that 10-day turnaround time in relation to the main LGPS benefits does have the potential to cause quite a lot of issues for admin teams, especially if there are a number of unprocessed leavers that are waiting to be dealt with. So from the point that that match is made, there's only 10 days for the fund to sort out any issues with the lever, which might be trying to actually get the information from the employer in the first place. And then for the benefits to be calculated, checked, then sent back to the dashboard. So that 10-day turnaround can be quite tight to sort all that out. That obviously could put a lot of pressure on resources and put funds at risk of not meeting the legal timescales, which is something, as I mentioned, TPR will be quite hot on. However, there is still around 18 months to go until dashboards go live to the public. So now's the perfect time to put plans in place to clear any unprocessed levers, if there are any, whilst there's still time. So basically, it could be a risk, but there's still time to do something about it, and now's the perfect time to start thinking about it. I think that brings me to the end of section 1. So unless there's any questions, I can hand over to Ben, who's going to start looking at some of the limitations and considerations over dashboards.
That's a good time to check if anybody's got questions. It's difficult for us to see the room, so you'll have to let us know if there is anybody who wants to ask any questions.
Yes, as chair, I'd like to ask a question, please. As you mentioned in your presentation, there are approximately 31 billion in unclaimed pensions at the moment. How will this dashboard be rolled out and publicised to inform existing already retired pensioners the way to access the dashboard and to check their status and if they are receiving all the pensions that they have paid into?
So there's the first thing to point out is that pensions already in payment won't be shown on the dashboards. So I guess there's a communication piece there as well in terms of notifying pensioners what they might and might not see. In terms of the sort of national marketing, not quite sure how that's going to look, whether it's drip fed until they go live or whether it's a big campaign near the end. But I guess it sort of highlights the importance of communicating to your members some of this information and some of the contextual information about what dashboards will and probably more importantly won't do. Yeah,
that's right, because your pensioners may still have deferred pensions somewhere else or something like that. So I think that's a really good point. Yeah.
Yes. So even though the pensioners won't be shown, a sort of short section in a pensions newsletter or equivalent wouldn't do any harm, just to manage expectations and let them know that that might not be shown on there.
Brilliant. Were there any other questions?
Well, just on a related point, obviously we heard a presentation on this from I think it was Jo from Norfolk Pension Fund, and she had some interesting metrics about engagement, pensions, and you know how engaged a member is. And the most engaged age group were those members who were, you know, on the glide path to retirement, i.e., you know, the finish line was in sight, and then, you know, they were very actively engaged with their pension, but you know, early savers, new starters, people merrily going through their careers, the engagement levels was very low, and I suspect, you know, that will largely mirror, you know, dashboard engagement probably as well. Wouldn't you suggest?
I think that's possibly where might be where the commercial dashboards may help that, in terms of bringing it alongside someone's more basically seeing the whole picture alongside other financial things and using apps that people are more used to using, so online banking, and then potentially being able to give more of a holistic view. But it's definitely a challenge. But in terms of improving those behaviours, that's possibly where or one of the benefits of having the commercial dashboards and really pushing that forward.
I was wondering, I don't know if you can answer this, Ben and Luke, but you know, one of the things around dashboards, they can potentially help with adequacy in retirement. There's a lot of people out there who've got not enough really to live comfortably in retirement. And we know the average pension in the LGPS is, you know, maybe 5,000 or something like that. So along with the state pension, that alone isn't enough to really live a comfortable life that people might expect. So maybe in the future, the dashboards would include, this is your all of your pensions put together, and this is what you need to be comfortable in retirement, just to make people engage with it perhaps a bit earlier. So it's time to do something about it before it's too late. That's what I would like to see anyway. So we'll be talking to the various people about making sure that information is available.
That would help.
I think so. Yeah. Okay. Were there any other questions before we let Ben have a go?
Yes, I've just got one. And I think we touched on this this week, Laura. With the advent of AI, how secure and resilient will this app or dashboard be to hackers and people obtaining your information? Thank you.
So I guess the first point, like I mentioned at the start, the dashboard, there's no actual personal information on the dashboard itself. It's like a switchboard. Yeah, in terms of the information on there, there's no personal information. It's just the link between. There are obviously risks, inherent risks. I think some of the potential ones would be around ID fraud and the general data protection, basically. In terms of the cyber sort of side of things, that's probably something that the Hayward as the ISP would be able to provide some assurances on, and with the data protection impact assessment. But yeah, there's no data stored on the dashboard system, and there are quite strict controls and standards in place. In summary.
Yeah, I think the thing is, if someone had got hold of your a member's data from somewhere else, like their national insurance number and their date of birth or something, they could potentially put the details in to the dashboard and get some information about their pensions back. But then it's how they do anything about that, and it's the controls that the fund has and Hayward's have to kind of prevent them taking that any further and doing that sort of thing, which is quite important. So yeah, we're doing a bulk review of the cyber security for Hayward, so hoping that sort of the ISP requirements and things like that will be kind of included in that review. So that might be something that you want to participate in, potentially looking at the results of that review for your fund.
Thank you, Laura. Any other questions? Thank you. I'll let you carry on then. Thank you.
Right, Ben, it's your go.
Great. Thank you, Luke, and thanks everybody. Hopefully that first section has given everyone a good understanding of what dashboards are and how they're going to work. And I'm now going to look at some of the challenges that dashboards might introduce, mainly looking at it from the member point of view, but also how that then impacts the fund and in particular the administration team. So if you could move on, Laura. So firstly, in terms of member challenges, dashboards will have limited explanation of the figures they show. So as I'm sure we all know, pensions are complicated, particularly schemes like the LGPS with all of its historic regulations and weird and wonderful rules and historic regulations. So it's just not feasible for dashboards to provide detailed explanations of all of the figures that they're going to show, given how many different schemes will be connected. And just to get back to something Luke touched upon, that's where dashboards will be different and kind of less useful than your own member portal and your own annual benefit statements. So hopefully this is a stepping stone and a kind of encouragement for members to make more use of member portals with their pension providers, given that they're places that you can provide a lot more detailed information. Secondly, the second point here is that dashboards might be missing information for some people. Inevitably, there will be some naughty schemes that haven't connected, and also some new schemes that are still on their connection journey once they've been set up. And the matching process that Lucas touched upon, that won't work perfectly, and it won't always find all the pensions for every single person. So there'll be a challenge around people not seeing the full picture on dashboards.
Ben, can I just quick ask a question on that?
Yeah.
Not all schemes have to, do they? There's some small schemes out there that don't have to do this. Am I getting that right? Or
I think there are, yeah. Did we touch upon that on the slide that Luke had earlier? Maybe we didn't with the timescales, but there is a similar table like that that does show the schemes that aren't required to. Yeah, the really small ones with kind of a handful of members.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So on the next slide, we've got another couple of member challenges. So another issue is that the figures shown may not be complete and accurate. So there will be certain elements, again, for complicated schemes like the LGPS, you've got things like debits, early and late retirement adjustments, additional contributions and additional benefits being purchased, and now most recently underpins in relation to McLeod. They're all going to be really difficult or in some cases impossible to include on the dashboard. And then the final member issue on this slide is just around dashboards being very much view only. So they're not designed or intended to allow members to experiment with different retirement options like retiring early or retiring late or commuting pension for lump sum. And they also won't allow even simple requests like address changes. That's not what dashboards are intended to provide. And again, that comes back to kind of your own member portal, which will be much more useful. It'll have much more functionality, and hopefully, yeah, just encouraging members to use that and to become more kind of digitally engaged with their pensions. And then the final point, just at the bottom of this slide, the reason we're kind of mentioning these member challenges is that they are very likely to lead to additional queries from members, which in turn leads to further strain on the admin team, which I'm sure you all know is kind of strained enough as it is with all of the various administration challenges they're facing at the moment. Luke's talked about engagement and how that should increase as a result of dashboards. That's obviously great. It's a good thing in general, but the downside for pension administrators is that it will inevitably lead to more queries. So that is something to think about when kind of assessing resourcing levels and that kind of thing. So next slide, Laura. I think we've kind of touched upon this a little bit already, but we do need to be wary of pension scams. I'm sure we already know kind of what a big issue this is. There's some stats there from 2023 showing that there were over 550 reports of pension scams in that year, a total of £17 million lost, and an average of £46,000 lost per person. And there's definitely a risk that this could get worse with dashboards. You can imagine scammers coming up with creative ways to direct people to fake dashboards or to try and get hold of that data, as Laura just said, and kind of become able to log into dashboards on members' behalf and access that data that way. So I think continued communication with members on pension scams will just become more important. I mean, it's already important. It's already something that goes out with transfer requests and that kind of thing. It'll just be kind of amplifying that message and making sure people are aware of pension scams and being careful when they start using dashboards. So next slide, Roy. Again, this is something we touched on with the commercial dashboards, but just to kind of talk in a little bit more detail. As Luke alluded to, the original plan was for commercial dashboards to launch simultaneously with the government's Money Helper dashboard. But last year, those plans were changed and commercial dashboards were essentially put on the back burner for the time being. I don't think that went down particularly well with the providers who had already started developing their platforms. Some of them we've shown there on this slide. As Luke said, we do still expect commercial dashboards to arrive at some point in the future, mainly because that Money Helper dashboard alone is not going to be enough to change the habits of the country and to get people engaged with their pensions. We are going to need to see multiple platforms and providers that users are familiar with for other services like online banking. So yeah, we expect to see those in the future, but maybe a while until they actually arrive. And then the potential issue when they do arrive is that these companies are clearly going to be looking to monetize their dashboards by selling products and services through them. And a lot of those may not be suitable for members of schemes like the LGPS. What we don't want to see is the members to be encouraged to make bad decisions, potentially in the worst case lose money as a result of those decisions. But at the very least, it could cause disputes between members and their pension schemes. I'm sure if there are any officers listening in, they'll have experience of members who are determined to transfer out to, a self-invested personal pension or a product that isn't kind of suitable and isn't as good as the LGPS, but they've seen it somewhere else and they think it's a good idea and kind of causes complaints and disputes between members and the fund. So I think the key action here, which you kind of mentioned at the bottom there on that call out, is that communication with members is going to be really important. We need to kind of make sure that they understand and appreciate the value of their LGPS benefits, and they aren't kind of attracted by the shiny looking products on offer from all of these other providers. So next slide, I think. So we've looked at challenges and concerns. Now just having a quick look at some of the key roles that relate to dashboards, and then we'll look at the next steps to finish. So firstly, looking at the scheme manager, which is a TPR term, and essentially for the LGPS means the administering authority and the committee. We've got a list of responsibilities here, such as setting up the system to connect, dealing with requests, checking and, importantly, improving data, some of which Luke's talked about already. I won't read any more of those back because we're also going to share the slides and you can refer to them in the future if you need to. But the key point really is the one at the bottom, around how decision making in relation to all of these areas above must be recorded to ensure compliance with legal requirements. Again, to go back to something Luke mentioned, TPR has issued that compliance and enforcement policy, and it does have the power to dish out penalties where those responsibilities are not met. And we would expect TPR to be initially relatively lenient and understanding, given that dashboards are new, but I think their level of understanding might be dependent upon how well those decisions have been documented and how closely processes have been followed. If it's been documented well and processes are robust, then you'd expect TPR to go more lightly on than they would on a scheme that hasn't documented their decisions and doesn't have processes in place. So on the next slide, I would just have a look at another set of roles. We haven't talked too much about employers, but clearly they will have a really key role to play in making sure that dashboards are successful, primarily by providing that good quality and timely data, which we touched upon already. And I know as a fund, you do use iConnect, which is great. So it's going to be important to ensure that employers continue to use that platform and they do provide data in the way that you've set out for them in documents like the admin strategy. Aside from data, though, employers can also help by communicating with their employees, encouraging them to keep personal information up to date, like surname changes, address changes. That will then feed through to the fund and in turn will help with dashboard matching, making everyone's lives easier. But also developing clear policies around things like transfers in, given that members might potentially discover historic pensions that they never knew they had and suddenly want to transfer them into the fund. It'll be important for employers to have policies around the scenarios that they might allow that to go ahead. And then finally, they could incorporate dashboards into their ongoing employee services. So again, trying to promote engagement between their employees and their pension saving by using things like financial planning sessions, pre-retirement sessions, that kind of thing. It comes back to what we said before about giving members a kind of holistic view of their pensions, so they understand what income they're going to get in retirement and where that's coming from. On the next slide, we're just going to look at some of the key actions that we think that all schemes should either be taking now already or should be looking to take in the near future. Firstly, appointing an integrated service provider, which is the provider that physically enables the dashboard connection. We've already mentioned and we know that Hayward have been appointed and the progress on that side of things seems to be going well, which is all really good. The second point we've kind of mentioned here is around governance. And we've got a couple of suggestions there. So maybe setting up a project team for dashboards if you don't already have one. Considering the decisions that are required, going back to that list on the scheme manager slide previously, some of the risks associated with those decisions, like Luke said, around matching criteria, maybe not being too, not making the matching criteria too strict, but also not making it too easy. Maybe considering whether any of the approval of these decisions could or should be delegated, given that some of the things we mentioned, those scheme manager responsibilities, are likely to be beyond the detailed knowledge of the committee. Also thinking about having a regular dashboards update as a standing item maybe on both committee and board meetings. That could be really helpful given the challenges that we've just talked about, and also the kind of journey that all pension schemes are going to be on over the next couple of years between getting on board with dashboards and then members actually accessing and using them. And then the third point, we're just kind of re-emphasising something we've touched upon a few times already, and that's about data quality and the matching criteria that Luke talked about. The key action being really to make the most of this period now ahead of dashboards being available to the public by doing everything that you can to improve data quality. So actions like clearing backlogs, implementing data improvement plans, making sure that all employers are onboarded and correctly using iConnect. And the more you can do in relation to data cleansing and data improvements before dashboards go live, the easier the administration team's lives will be when they do. And the final point at the bottom of this slide is really just a slightly shameless plug for our checklist that we issued a couple of months ago. It's a simple checklist that includes a list of actions in various areas that you can just literally tick off on the checklist itself, which gives you a good idea of where your progress is against the things that we would expect you to have done or to be doing. All the things we've talked about today, plus several other items on there that we haven't touched upon. So please, feel free to have a look at that free checklist and see if it's useful for your fund. And that's it, Laura. So the next slide was just inviting questions on any of the things we've talked about. Happy to open it up.
Any questions? I have a question, but it's not for you. It's for Jeff, actually. You mentioned the 31st of October is the date that has been set to make sure all the information is transferred across to the dashboard. How realistic is this, Jeff, that we conform to this and we will meet this date?
As both Luke and Ben and Laura indicated, we're very much locked into the whole Wales and national really approach to the LGPS, complying with the dashboard's timetable. In that, and only insofar as Haywoods are the predominant software supplier to the LGPS. I think they've got over like 90% of the market. They provide the software that manages and calculates all the benefits that we have on member records, etc. So they've been front and center on this timetable and journey with us from day one, and we're working collectively as not only within Wales but on the national technical group that we've got with Haywoods to develop and ensure that we hit the touch points required by the timetable. So am I confident? As confident as you can be, I would suggest. But if we're I would suggest if we're late, so will all the other 7 funds in Wales be late, and etc. Because we're all quite reliant on our software provider Haywoods in assisting in this. But just it's a subtle difference, and it's important. And I think Luke and Ben alluded to it. I mean the dashboard just sort of, what sort of analogy do it sort of provides a window in which a member can gaze through and look through to all the records and that a system like Haywoods has got in respect of your pensions. But what that window can do can also look at other pensions that you may have elsewhere. So we're just required to ensure all our data in respect to the pensions that we manage as a manager is all up to date and is clean, etc. That viewing window, the dashboard element of it, is as Luke earlier said, sort of the undetermined bit. At the moment, we're concentrating on the back end bit that Haywoods are assisting us with.
Thank you, Jeff. And just one question and for Laura and her team. Are there any late penalties for providing or the deposit of information later than the 31st of October.
Ben and Luke, probably one I can't answer. So is this so if you're not connected by the 31st of October, will there be any financial penalties for that?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, so that's part of the compliance and enforcement policy. So there could potentially be penalties, as Ben said, if there's in the outset, you might find that TPR is slightly more lenient depending on the circumstances, but they certainly do have the power to enforce penalties if there isn't sort of reasonable steps in place as to why you've not connected on time, basically.
I think you made the point, didn't you, earlier, that the data, if you've got data cleaning that you need to be done, it's not that doesn't necessarily all need to be completely done by the 31st of October. You just need to do that by the time it goes live. So while it's an important deadline, it is the sort of underlying data bit, you maybe have a little bit longer. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, there's almost like two stages to look at it. There's a connect by point, which almost is when it seems like the end point, but it's almost when the work starts from there. So getting all the data cleansed and everything, and obviously thinking about the member experience from that point on. So yeah, almost look at it as in two phases, really.
Yeah.
As Jeff alluded to, all LGBS funds are in the same boat, and if several of them aren't able to connect by the 31st of October, let's say hypothetically, because of some technical issue with Haywards or with the software, I would say that's probably something that TPR wouldn't be looking to kind of enforce fines on. But if there was a particular outlier, a fund hadn't done the steps that they were expected to take, they hadn't appointed an ISP, something like that, then in that case you'd expect TPR to be a bit more kind of harsh on any outliers. So yeah, I think with everyone being in the same boat, it's probably safety in numbers a little bit.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
I think one popped up online, but I can't see it anymore.
Okay. Well, if that's the end of the presentation, thank you very, very much, Laura and your team, for coming today and presenting. And just to say thank you again from the committee for all your help. Thank you.
Thank
and
you, Chair.
Look forward to seeing you.
Yep.
Look forward to seeing you later on with our figures for last year.
I'm sure you will. Thank you, Chair, and thank you everybody for your questions. It's great to have an engaged session. So lovely. We'll see you soon.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers, then. Bye-bye. Okay, move on now to item 12, which is exclusion of the public. It's been moved by Phil. Can I have a seconder, please? I'll second.
Yep.
There we are. Thank you. Thank you, Phil, too. Okay, I'll pass over to Jeremy for this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's all in favour of the exclusion? Thank you. That's been carried. I shall stop the recording now. Thank you.